one. I'm going to start recording, and we are also going to be transcripting this, which will be shared. So yeah, welcome. I hope all is well. I hope everybody is safe and sound. Next slide. We've got the sign-in sheet. We're going to put that in the chat. So please, when you get a chance, maybe now, if you could sign in. If you have any questions, you can share them there. Any comments, anything that you want to bring up. Actually, even we could bring up Richard's suggestion. If you want to write that down, we can memorialize that just around an update around what's happening with BACMed, and we'll bring that back to the co-leads. Thank you very much. We'll move on. We're just going to give it a little overview of the agenda tonight. We've got a couple of presentations that we'll be doing. We're going to start with the co-leads report back. We've got a couple of items there. Then a couple of implementation project updates. First, actually, we're going to hear from the Sustainable Ports Collaborative. We got a request to switch those. So we're going to switch those. We're going to hear from the Sustainable Ports Collaborative first, and then we're going to move to Beth and an update on the general plan. So, and then we will hopefully be right around 8 o'clock. All right, so let's move to the co-leads. Do you want to start? And then I'll support you in that, Nicole.
Thanks, Randolph. Happy Wednesday and welcome to WOCAP's final meeting of 2022. WOP had the privilege of presenting last week to BACMed's board, CEHJ, and we were able to highlight several accomplishments for the WOCAP in 2022. First and foremost, we highlighted the addition to our steering committee of 3 residents and an illustrious faculty member from UC Berkeley. So that's wonderful and exciting. It's nice also to create a little bit more parity in terms of residents and agency folks. We also highlighted a streamlined process for our implementation project process and the WOCAP tracker. It was a long time coming to get that up and running, and with the help of Jess Sand, we're able to have it running, and it's live on our website. WOCAP's plan for the 2023 year is to actually share our tracker and our progress and all of those tools with other AB 617 communities in California so that they don't have to reinvent anything since we've already done it. And that's all I got, Randolph.
Okay, we've got a couple of items. We've got some new folks we want to introduce, huh?
Yes, and
no, you're disappointed.
Brian will be doing that since he's a little more entertaining with introductions than I am.
Okay, let me click the right buttons here. So we're excited to be growing our organization. As you all know, Nicole started with us back at the end of this year. And just in the past couple of months, we've added Angela, who is our new assistant director, if I remember everyone's title, assistant director of finance and operations.
I'm on the Zoom.
So she's going to be tightening up the ship in ways that I was never able to. and really happy to have Angela on board. She's already whipping us into shape in figuring out our budgets and our grants and our obligations, and how long we will survive on what we have to work with. Aaron is has come on board in the past month or two. He is our teaching staff at this point. He's working with our role in the Attitudinal Healing Connections Oakland Leadership Program, which is an after-school program for youth, high school youth, where we bring a STEM component, a science component, to what is essentially an arts and expression program. So we're really happy to have Aaron working on that. He's he was already working with us in a induction cooktop project where he goes out and demonstrates induction cooking first in the schools, and teaches kids about magnetism and indoor air pollution caused by cooking on gas stoves, and is getting people oriented in to induction cooking, which uses magnetism to heat the pot. And we also have a lender program that Aaron manages, where we lend induction cooktops and appropriate saucepan or frying pan to families who want to check it out and see how it works. And Jess has come on board. It's about 3 months ago. I convinced her to come and work with us. She'd been working with us freelance and volunteering for 5 years or more. And I convinced her to come on board and help us with a variety of special projects. And she's particularly helping us with some of our strategic and budgetary planning and development stuff. Right now, she's managing the project to update our 2002 Neighborhood Knowledge for Change report, which we're tentatively calling 20 Years of Neighborhood Knowledge. And we're hoping to publish that probably in the first part of next year. We'll see if we can demonstrate that there's actually been some positive change. So I welcome them all. They're all fantastic people. We're enjoying having them on board, and we'll probably have a couple of more new hires in the coming year, because it turns out we have a lot of work to do. We've got some big grants for things that have to do with strategies, and we've got to bring folks on to make sure we get that work done effectively, and we'll be reporting back on those as they progress. Thanks.
Great. And Wanda will tell you, Angela is also a great sailor.
Right.
We went sailing well, a lot of us went sailing on the bay a few weeks ago. Is there anything else on CEHJ that you want to share? There is a link for those of you who are not familiar with CEHJ. That is, there's a link in the chat that's Community Equity, Health, and Justice Committee. Anything else on that, Brian? Nope.
Only that committee and the Air District Board in general is always very interested in this work and very supportive of what we're doing here in West Oakland. And I think Nicole did do a pitch for them to keep funding us, so that was a good thing.
I did.
But they are amazingly supportive of the work that all of us are doing here with the WOCAP to try to bring about positive change. And so they're a great ally. I don't think there's any risk of them dropping us or moving on to other more interesting things, because there is nothing more interesting or exciting than the work we're doing here in West Oakland.
Great. And we've got Miss Margaret. Let's wait till she connects to her audio. give her a little update, and then we're just going to move for the next item. Nicole, do you want to start, and then I'll follow up? It's the community engagement. Hey, Miss Margaret, how are you doing?
Okay.
Great. Okay, so next slide.
Thank you for asking.
Oh, no problem. You want me to take it? Or you got it?
It's all you, Randolph. I mean, you
Okay,
made this happen.
So we have been working on this, on community engagement. There's been a small group of us working, and then, we brought that to the co-leads, and we've been working on a number of documents. And so we're finally at a point where we can share it. So we also brought it to the steering committee and got some, a couple of times we got some input. And then I also want to say thank you to a few people, Gwen, Fern, and Cheryl from WOCAP, who also provided input along the way for the documents. And so now we're at a stage where they are ready for prime time. We wanted to share them with you. I believe, yes, they did go out in the invitation. And so for anybody who did not receive it in the invitation, there's a link to the 4 documents in the chat right now. We started with a general WOCAP one pager, like what is the WOCAP? And then we did a steering committee one pager. Then we started working on this broader document, which is now lovingly called the Welcome to WOCAP. So it started as a community engagement plan document, and it's part orientation and part community engagement tool. And so there's some information in there. And then the final one that we were working on was a health one pager, kind of what are the health inequities or health impacts of living in West Oakland. And so there's 4 documents in there. And just as a kind of an overview, the community engagement or the welcome to the WOCAP document is the longer document. And it was really meant for a few different things. One, it was, so we internally had a way to very clearly and concisely share information and direct the steering committee around community engagement. 2, for the steering committee. So you had, kind of really a clear and concise way to share information in your role as steering committee members and getting information out. And then it's a standalone document as well for the general public. And we have, we'll be using the tool for recruitment. And so we would encourage you to share the documents to whoever you think could, use the information and who might be able or interested in participating either here, joining as a member of the public, or there will be another round of recruitment of steering committee members. So the files in the folder are the same ones that were sent out. It's got a different date on it, but it is the same document. And then a lot of this information will be WOAP's website, EIP, the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project website is going to be the place where everything resides. So any of these documents that you need, and you'll see maps and other resources, you'll be able to find that all on the EIP website, thanks to Jess and Nicole. So if we don't have any more information on that, again, please share those documents. Take a look at them if you have not looked at them, and then please share those documents. Any other thoughts from EIP or the district who all worked on it? All right, great. Okay. Let's move to the next agenda item. And so We've got 2 implementation project report backs. We're going to start with the Sustainable Ports Collaborative. And can you tell me who will be presenting? So I can give you access.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. So do you
Ryan
want,
will do it.
okay, do you want us to forward, or do you want to forward it yourself?
You can go ahead and forward it. That's
Okay.
fine.
Great. All right.
Oh, so hit it. There we go. This is a 2020 year in review of the work of the West Oakland Sustainable Ports Collaborative. Just to give you a little background, the Sustainable Ports Collaborative was a strategy in the WOCAP. It was originally, the language originally said that the Air District, the port, and the city, I think, would create a Sustainable Ports Committee and talk about how to move the port toward zero emissions and probably electrification.
Good.
So we decided to form that as a community-led collaborative and invite all the same people, but have it be something that we were setting agendas for with our partners at Earth Justice. And so we've been at it for about a year and a half. But in the past year, there's been some really exciting work, a lot of work, and some real high points. So of course, we've had meetings. We've had 5 formal collaborative meetings and additional planning meetings to do those. Oh, it takes time to run these collaboratives. Good attendance from good number of people representing 20 organizations. Good broad spectrum of stakeholders here, from public health to environmental NGOs, technical groups, the city, the port, utilities. East Bay Community Energy is on the committee, in the collaborative, and EPA is part of the thing. You may notice an absence of community members. We originally set this up as pretty much a technical discussion group to bring the best brains in the region and the nation that we could find into a single place and talk about how do we get a green port. I think in the coming year, we may open the invitation for folks who are particularly interested in this subject matter, specifically greening the port, who are members of the general public or the community, to join that discussion. We've gone quite a bit. We've gone pretty far with it, and we think we've got our feet on the ground now. So it might be interesting for members of the public to participate. We have 2 subgroups, one for political advocacy around green ports and zero emissions, and one on specifically an port electrification subcommittee, which is smaller. Next slide. Just then, we'll get to the electrification piece more. That group was a group that came together specifically to say, how do we get the port electrified in the broader sense of how do we get the port sustainable from growth and economics and all those pieces? How do we get them moving and accelerating their movement towards zero emission operations? So we've had several workshops at those collaborative meetings, starting with a general planning workshop where the members set a course for themselves. We had a zero emission workshop looking at opportunities and barriers. We had a drayage specific workshop looking at zero emission drayage trucks and that mostly independent contractor fleet at the port. We had a workshop on vessel emissions and commercial harbor craft, and that's like ferries and even fishing boats and things like that. a cargo handling, working toward zero emission cargo handling. In some ways, that's the low hanging fruit because that equipment is evolving quickly. But there are some big challenges there as well. Some of the real big equipment is not evolving from the manufacturers as quickly as we might want. And then electrification readiness, pushing the port, helping the port, nudging the port to really develop a master electrification plan so that there's a sensible pathway to electrifying the port as a whole. Next slide. So there's about 6 slides here that represent outcomes that have happened this year. We've had a really good, really successful effort to get a direct relationship and direct influence or input with the Board of Port Commissioners, and to hopefully influence the selection of commissioners for 2 seats that will open in the coming year, and the new mayor will have an opportunity to appoint folks to that. So we'd sent a letter to the mayor of Oakland, and then we had a meeting about we were hoping that Mayor Schaaf would put a couple folks on the board this year. She didn't feel that she was ready to ask people to step down, and we didn't want the one environmental representative, Michael Colbruno, whose seat was open this year. We didn't want him to leave, so we stuck with what we had there, and we're hoping that the new mayor will appoint someone that we recommend. Our recommendations were very well received by the executive director of the port, and he thought any of the 4 or 5, maybe 6 names we put on a list that I don't have with me at the moment, but their names you would recognize. He thought any of them would be great. And he actually is looking for more support on the board for the environmental plans they have to carry out. So we wound up in a relationship with Commissioner Colbruno, and Commissioner Colbruno has set up an environmental, sort of an ad hoc environmental subcommittee of the Board of Port Commissioners. And he has asked us, our electrification subcommittee, to meet with him monthly and talk about advancing a set of issues that he's very clear on, one being the electrification master plan, which is a tremendous thing considering the relationship we've struggled with at the port over the years and our relative lack of access directly to the Port Commission. This is a huge step forward. And so we're really excited, and we have to congratulate Commissioner Colbruno for being open to having this more direct relationship with the community. Let's see, next one. We've been sending a variety of comment letters to the port. Comment letters are pretty standard way to get to them, to push priority issues. A lot of it pushing for an environmental ordinance and this electrification master plan. The environmental ordinance would be an ordinance that defined environmental targets for the port's tenants and customers, and would ask, would require of the tenants to have their own plan to meet the state goals and hopefully to accelerate those goals towards zero emissions. There's been quite a bit of resistance to such an ordinance that would have real teeth, mostly on the part of the Pacific Maritime Shipping Association, whose argument is that either the port doesn't have the authority or that authority is already covered by CARB, and the Air District. So we will continue to push for a strong environmental ordinance that will really, the basic argument is if you don't have a plan that has specific targets in it, how can you determine whether you're getting anywhere? And so that's really what we're hoping to get from the port and their tenants. Do we skip 3? Can we go back 1? Yeah, we're working. We've been hosting multiple workshops about full port electrification. The port is, right now has a federal grant out for 62 million, I think, to develop a microgrid. They have an interest in getting, eventually severing their dependency on PG&E and having a fully, zero emission renewable electrical port. But one of the things we're struggling with about that is without a master plan, we feel that writing grants for various projects maybe, is just sort of hit or miss. And so we've been working closely with the port to see, with the executive director, to see if we, meaning the community and our partners, can have some influence in the writing of the proposals for all this money that's, designated for ports. There's hundreds of millions of dollars designated for ports to reduce emissions and reduce congestion in the logistics center. So that's a top priority for Commissioner Colbruno's environmental subcommittee, and we'll be continuing to work closely with him on that. Next slide. We've been working to support their the fundraising for the port to accelerate their move to electrification and zero emission freight. That's the core thing in it. There you go. It's really the heart of the whole thing. Can we, there are regulations that are moving industry in that toward zero emissions. We're asking the port to accelerate their move to zero emissions. And we believe that planning is a key to that process. That if they write good plans, they need a good strategic plan that defines their intentions as an institution, and they need a good electrification plan that guides their move toward zero emission. The port's also interested in hydrogen, and they're sort of casting about trying to decide what's the right mix, because hydrogen is kind of a new player in the whole area of zero emission freight. We met directly with some of the terminal operators, which was interesting, because they called us and said, we'd like to talk to you about what we're trying to do. And it's very encouraging when you see the industry taking that initiative. Next slide. So this is a very important piece, and it has to do with our goals. For the name of our collaboration is the Sustainable Port Collaboration. So the real question is, what is a sustainable port in Oakland? It is a landlocked port. There's no more free land. They can't expand unless they want to buy my house or try to move into the neighborhood, and that's not the direction things are going. So we have engaged in resistance to the Army Corps of Engineers in the expansion of the Turning Basin, which is a place up there near Jack London Square where you may have occasionally seen a big ship being turned around so that it points out to sea, and then they take it down and tie it up and unload it or load it with containers. The way we're looking at that is the port, given its constraints on land, is already having trouble getting containers off ships, and off the terminals. And that's with ships that only carry 8,000 or 10,000 containers. So if a goal of the Turning Basin is to bring in ships that carry 15,000 or 20,000 containers, it seems unreasonable to us that that wouldn't have immense impacts on our community. More trucks, more trains, more pollution, and potentially just absolute gridlock in the logistics industry. So we are petitioning essentially the Army Corps of Engineers and EPA to take a very close look at the needs assessment and the external impacts that such an expansion of the port would create. And would be more to talk about that next year. Next slide. I think we're almost done. We're continuing to track the port's progress toward zero emission operations. And we're kind of keeping a scorecard of what they're achieving. What pieces of equipment are being changed out? Are those hybrids or zero emission? What could they do next? And how does it all relate to their own planning and target documents like beyond 2020? So we're staying on the ball. We're keeping an eye on what's going, and we're pushing them to accelerate their move to zero emissions. Next slide. I think that's it. There you go. I don't know if there's Q&A. Any questions?
Yeah.
Everybody loved it? Thumbs up, clapping. All right.
Any questions? No? Okay.
Thanks.
It looks
Sorry,
like,
Yeah.
Alicia. Yeah.
I knew
Hi,
we
thanks.
had
I
something. Uh-huh.
I was just wondering, so there's the port subcommittee. Is that the subcommittee of the Sustainable Port Collaborative or a committee of the commission, the Port Commission?
Oh, the Port Ad Hoc Subcommittee it's an ad hoc subcommittee of the Port Commission. And it has Michael Colbruno set it up, Commissioner Colbruno. And then he has, I think, 3 other commissioners who volunteered to be in that, essentially a discussion group where they could have more detailed conversations about 5 key things that Commissioner Colbruno wants to pursue. And
so is West Oakland EIP in those small group conversations?
no, we have an opportunity every month to talk to Commissioner Colbruno, and then he will bring what we have to say to that subcommittee. Because it's not a standing committee, it's an ad hoc committee of the board. It's not a public committee, but he has made a commitment to us to meet regularly and bring our perspectives to that committee.
Okay. I just want to make sure that if there was a, I don't know, like a role for Backman, that we would, know about it and hear about it and, stuff like that.
You could probably join our monthly meetings. I'll have to clear that with everybody, but I don't
Well, I
think
think
that's a
Michael
problem.
Murphy
It's
is potentially
yeah.
the staff member, but I just want to make,
Yeah.
I thought I heard that, maybe there was, a meeting that Beckman could be invited to that maybe we are not already attending. Not for no reason, obviously, just to really kind of stay up with the pulse of this new development.
Absolutely. And, the core group communicating with Commissioner Colbruno is our port electrification subcommittee of the collaborative, of our collaborative. So if the Air District isn't represented on that subcommittee, you're welcome to be members. Because you are members of the main sustainability collaborative, and this is just a subcommittee. You're welcome to participate if you guys, obviously you have an interest in electrification and zero emission freight. So yeah, we can make sure that you're included, or whoever you would like to be included.
Thanks, Brian.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Brian, this this is exactly why I was wanting this to go before the general plan discussion, but it makes me think that I would love it if we could get a general plan conversation on the agenda to have this, your ports group thinking about, what recommended general plan policies should
Mm-mm.
Mhm.
know. Okay, Miss Margaret says no. I don't know enough
Uh,
about this group, maybe. I'll let you two discuss that, but
We'll discuss it internally. I think we need to figure out how the port fits in the city's general plan. And, certainly it's relevant in the industrial land policies and how those play out, and how in the EJ policies, where there's an attempt to create buffer zones around industrial land. Um, I think as you know, the general plan thing is complicated. I think as long as we're clear on our intentions, I think we could have a conversation about how they fit together.
Miss Margaret and then Laura.
A couple things. Good evening, everyone. Thank y'all for being here. The port in the past have had different committees from the different departments to ensure the board members were engaging around issues and concerns of the Port of Oakland. So what Commissioner Colbruno is doing has been part of a traditional process to have these subcommittees with inside of the Port of Oakland. My other issue is that when it comes down to the Oakland General Plan, we do not have enough data or research regarding a emission reduction, anything about the Port of Oakland. And that is my discomfort, that there's not even the maps. You don't have the maps to quantify what are the measurements for emission reduction. So until we have that type of data, we really are at a loss about emission reduction to the Port of Oakland, and also how it's supposed to support or be supporting emission reduction within the Oakland General Plan.
That's it. Are you good, Miss Margaret?
Yes.
For now? Okay. Laura?
Hi, yeah, hi. Yeah, I guess I would just have to reiterate the same comments that both Ms. Margaret and Brian stated with regards to the port's participation or involvement with the general plan update. And it's just as it was accurately, like I said, what I wanted to say was we have been engaged with the city's process, and where we have been asked to participate on the just industrial lands piece of the general update with regards to specific conversations around workforce development and jobs, because that is an element or should I say, a guiding principle for the update of the general plan, how to preserve or how the city can preserve and enhance job development around the core areas. Beyond that, we still haven't been engaged or actively or participating discussions beyond that in any of the other items around creating buffers or reducing impacts on proximity of these industrial lands and residential areas. So yeah, so we have brought conversations around jobs and job development by bringing and recruiting industry and folks that own warehouses up along the trade corridor in Oakland.
Thank you.
Right.
I mean, Laura, do you think that you want to be involved in greater depth in like the EJ element? Probably not housing, but
Yeah.
the EJ element in particular?
Thank you. Yes, yes. In fact, I think it was through talking with Alicia Parker around the general plan update. It's always one of those things that it's just better to broaden the net and who we ask at the port, just because, you know, the environmental might be focused on one thing, but we truly see all the nexus with regards to everything going on up and down west through East Oakland. So yes, we'd love to. If you see us and our input needed, please do invite us. And I'm particularly interested in the environmental justice component.
Okay, I know that I
Yeah.
think the city's here today, so we'll make sure that your name, at least your name, gets on a list, and you can coordinate getting the right people in the
Okay.
room if necessary.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Great. All right. Any other questions?
No.
I think
Great.
I'm done.
Okay, so we're gonna move, but before we move to the general plan update, we're gonna take just a little break. And I'm not sure, Henry, if you joined us late to miss this part or not. I'm not, I'm not
I
positive.
did join late. I joined late, Randolph.
Yes.
I'm very sorry.
No. I'm saying I don't know if you joined late particular to miss this part of the program. But
Oh,
this
no,
is
what are you doing?
this but this is the part of the program where your friends and others at EIP just really acknowledge your service to the district. And we can give you just the overview is that this will be Henry's last meeting as a staff member, but I think everybody has told him that he can't get off that easy. And so we'll be calling him, and and he'll still be around and involved and engaged, but we did want to take this time to acknowledge your what is it, 30 years of service?
35.
35
yeah.
years of service. So
Yeah.
thank
Not
you.
being that old, I can't say that I've known Henry throughout his entire career. But I do want to
I can
say
say
that
that.
over the course of this very sometimes very trying and difficult and creative and innovative exercise we've gone through here for AB 617, Henry has always provided stable leadership, and even when he loses his cool a little, he's always quick to come back, or he has a good reason to lose his cool. I've caused him to lose his cool a couple of times, and it's always worked out. It's always been a good collaborative discussion.
Absolutely.
There are always going to be struggles. This work isn't easy, especially when we're breaking new ground. And I really appreciate the past, I don't know how many years, but 4 or 5 years at least, that we've been working closely together on this kind of work.
Brian, thank you so much. Thank you really so much. It's I can't tell you how much I've appreciated this process and working with you and Ms. Margaret and the whole West Oakland EIP team and the steering committee. It's really, really been a highlight of my career. And I think we've been working together for a while, but I think we started this process back in, was it 2018? We had that meeting at City Hall with the mayor and Jack and a whole bunch of dignitaries. And here we are 4 years later. And I've learned so much from both of you guys. You're right, it hasn't been easy all the time, but we've done great work, and I'm really, really proud of the work that we've done. And I'm humbled and thankful that you both have let me work with you and let the Air District team work with you. We really have learned a lot. And this is it's really important work. I think I've learned a lot. The whole Air District team has learned a lot. And so it's really been an honor for me, and I'm not going to go away. I see Richard Gross still here. Once you retire, you can still stick around and participate in these meetings. So you haven't seen the last of me. Thank you very much for those kind words, Brian, and Ms. Margaret for your leadership too. Both of you are just great community leaders, and it's been an honor to work with both of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Henry.
Ms. Margaret. Ms. Margaret, you're on mute.
Thank you, Henry. Henry and I go back since the development of the community engagement process with Jack. And we have had lots of funny stories to talk about how West Oakland has influenced the staffing moving forward on a lot of issues, especially environmental justice, health, and community engagement, and processing and processing solutions. Henry, you're gonna be missed by me because you always find a way to pull me from the extreme back to the reality. And some of our discussions at the co-leads meeting, and that you will be missed. And thank you for all your service, putting up just putting up with me.
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. Ms. Margaret, and once you start serving grits at the office, I'm going to be back at those meetings. So I'll be back.
I'm finding a way also to learn to make biscuits.
Okay, good.
Awesome. We
Thank you.
are,
Back to you, Randolph.
yeah, we are not going to make this uncomfortable for you, but we do have, there are others. Richard?
Yeah, Henry, it's good to see you, and thanks for pointing out that you're expected to keep coming to these meetings. I retired from EPA a couple of years back after 40 years there. All of those years working opposite at the federal level, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And needless to say, to anybody that goes back a ways, the relationship between air programs, whether it's the local one or the federal one, and communities did not used to work this well. Frankly, air of all the media, at least at the federal level, was the least agile when it came to working directly with communities. So that's sort of where our work with West Oakland started 20 years ago. And watching the Air District come along, the Air District to me has been a model of evolution, of learning curve, and continually evolving and developing and working really hard to make this go better and better. And Henry, you've come through all of those changes. And I want to say I'm really grateful. I know it's not easy in the positions you've been in working within that agency, which is one of the most progressive in the country, but you've made all the changes. You've come through all the bends, and it's really been fun to watch and gratifying to watch. And I, for one, am grateful that you've stuck with the train all this far. And it's really been fun working with you, and I hope to see you around the table further on. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks. If you have any other comments for Henry, you can leave him a note. But again, he won't be going too far. And of course, we have Alicia joining the team from the district. So she was a great help at the city, and she will continue to be a great help at the district. So there'll be some continuity there. So great. We are now going to pass it over to Beth, and then after that, we're going to jump into some breakout rooms. So I'm going to set those up. And Beth, you have the reins, so you can take over.
Great, I'll share my screen. Hold on. Let me. Is the right one? Okay, can everyone see my screen okay? Let me make it into presenter mode. How do I, oh, slideshow. Okay, so the city's general plan process is chugging along, moving along, and we want to make sure that we continue to engage in it where appropriate. So for tonight, the next, hour or so, I'm going to just share sort of how we've engaged so far and what impact that's had specifically related to the EJ element. And then the city is working on some kind of draft concepts for the EJ element, and they're looking for feedback on them. So we're going to be going into breakout rooms after a few kind of larger group questions to kind of dive into some of their policy proposals and give our feedback. And whatever feedback we collect tonight, I will compile and in a kind of nice, clean way and hand off to the city. So for the housing element, things are moving really fast. Every jurisdiction in the Bay Area is sort of on the same timeline right now. But just a few days ago, the city published the public hearing draft housing element. There's like a short review period, and then they have to submit it to the state. So the housing element's the only element that has to get approved by the state. And at the end of the, so they're taking comments through the end of the month from the public. So if people feel inspired to write comments, we had submitted a comment letter in July. And so the new housing element has the city's response to our comments. And the final housing element is supposed to be adopted by the end of January. So it's happening really fast, and you know, that's not always great for public engagement, but at least we got to engage somewhat. So because we're going to focus on EJ more, and the housing element can kind of be a time warp, time suck. I have links here that I can put in the chat, and people can look at the letter we submitted in July, the draft, and then the city specifically calls out like where they incorporated our comments or didn't and why. So that's all there. The environmental justice element, I'm going to shift over to that now. And during this, feel free to, you know, I can't, I don't know if I can see hands too well, but if you have your hand raised or a question, just shout out, or hopefully Randolph can see if I don't see you. So the environmental justice element was originally going to be adopted at the same time, but now they're slowing that down because they want to make sure there's more time. So they're still collecting input and refining the map, drafting policies, and the draft is going to come out in the spring, and they're hoping to adopt it by July before council goes on leave for the summer. So yeah, and they don't have specific dates yet, so it's all a little vague. And Kalila, please chime in if there is anything I'm missing or getting wrong here, since we are so lucky to have you as our liaison.
Yeah, no, that's correct. There are no specific dates as yet. But
Good.
hopefully by January there will be.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I checked in with, I fact checked this with Lakshmi, but just got a Zoom quit unexpectedly. Can you all still hear me though? Zoom just popped. I'm still here. Seems like
Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you. We hear you, Beth.
Strange. So for the what just happened? Am I not sharing my screen anymore?
Doesn't look that
Okay,
way.
that
And
was
you
very
popped-
weird.
It just popped up.
Ms. Margaret, I see your hand.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to inform the audience about the issue about the mapping in the Port of Oakland.
Yes, I have a
I
slide
don't
for
know
you
if this
that I'm going
slide-
to hand it off
okay.
to you for that. So in one or two more slides, or in two more slides, I have a place for you to talk about that, because I do want you to talk about that. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we submitted a letter about the environmental justice communities map, and for the legislation that requires the EJ element, you have to create a map that designates where your priority EJ communities, disadvantaged communities are located, and focus, kind of prioritize the implementation of improvements in those places. So there's this big process of vetting the lands. First, they look at just data, but then they talk to people and people say, hey, your data doesn't really reflect what's on the ground fully. And here are some things you could do to change that. So our letter made these main 4 points in addition to a bunch of other details, but there were a few census tracts in West Oakland that were not identified as EJ communities. So we advocated that they should be. And then also had some recommendations of how to cut off, like instead of just saying the highest 25 scoring census tract should be EJ communities, that it should maybe be the 25th percentile. And then also, I don't know, there's an index that the city made that brings together dozens of different indicators into it. And so it sort of washes down the impact of any like one set of indicators. And so because of that, West Oakland wasn't always popping up as impacted, but there were a few areas where West Oakland is in the 90th percentile for things like pollution burden. So we made the case that like if any census tract is in the 90th percentile for some of these things, they should automatically be in make the cut. And then the industrial lands were not in the index. So that was something we also said for an EJ index, it makes sense to include industrial lands. Oh no, why isn't this not? Okay. So this was what the original map looked like. The places that are crosshatched in orange are the original EJ communities. And as you can see, there's all these parts of West Oakland are missing. And then the new map looks like this. And based on our comments and the comments of many other community members, now these parts are included. So these were the official summary of the city's changes. So they took our recommendation of using the 25th percentile instead of the top 25 census tracts, anything being in a 90th percentile or greater for any individual category. And then we also made the case that if the state has already gone through this entire process to designate AB 617 communities throughout the state, that those should automatically be considered EJ communities. And so that is also now part of their criteria. So that'll be for West Oakland. And then once East Oakland finalizes their boundaries for AB 617, those will also be included. And then they also, this is like the details of other people's comments that they included. And I'm not going to read through everything, but you can see they added the proximity to industrial zones, which wasn't there before, that we had called out, and others called out a bunch of other really important adjustments. So in all this, one of the challenges is that the port data, we don't have accurate port data, even though the pollution burden for the port is one of the biggest challenges in the city of Oakland. So the city, Ms. Margaret has linked up ACLIMA and the city to try and figure out if their block level data on air pollution could help. But because they're only driving on publicly accessible streets, it doesn't fully capture the port, any of the port emissions. So Ms. Margaret, I'll hand it off to you and let you say more about this.
The issue is that when they bring up the land use maps, are maps that should be identifying pollution, the Port of Oakland shows up as there's nothing there. And we know that there is a level of pollution coming from the Port of Oakland into West Oakland. But there is some data, such as the 100 data map that we did 3 or 4 years ago. But from the city, they do not have a map that shows where pollution is coming from within the Port of Oakland. And that's been a problem. And how to address that, and what are the mechanisms to address that? The regional air district air monitor does not capture that. There is no fence line sensors or air monitors within the Port of Oakland. So, and without having those tools, we really have not been able, under the general plan, to capture the air pollution burden from the Port of Oakland. And we need to have, you cannot do a general plan when you have this pollution burden that crosses over, not just in West Oakland, but all through the 880 corridor. So right now we're working towards how do we get that data. I have made a recommendation that we have a drone with a sensor on and a camera to find that information. But there's nothing else at this time outside the 100 data to identify pollution from the Port of Oakland. Even though they have been using modeling tools, the modeling tools don't give a real-time block, inch by inch, mile by mile, condition by condition, activity of operation throughout the Port of Oakland. For the general plan.
Right. So we did want to, before we go into small groups, just pause here and see if people had any kind of reflections or thoughts on how the city should kind of address port impacts and operations, or if people have any kind of ideas of how to get that data or better measure or describe pollution from the port. Richard.
I guess it's a question for West Oakland AIP, but also for Laura at the port. And I know we've had all sorts of CEQA and NEPA studies of the port, and frankly, a lot of us have had some dissatisfactions with those. The question is, would it be useful to consider, and Laura, I think you could answer whether it would add any information, to actually do a health impact analysis, an HIA, to get at this question, which I think folks who are familiar with HIA, and there's folks who know a lot more about it than I, but generally it goes beyond the sort of artificial categorizations that come under CEQA and NEPA. And I wonder if that might add some information. We have right around here Human Impact Partners, and Jonathan Heller's right here in town. I don't know what all folks' experience has been with that, but the HIA capacity here in the Bay Area is quite substantial. So just a suggestion to consider that. I don't know if that's fit for this group discussion, but maybe ongoing in a smaller group.
That's great, Richard. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not new for the port, and in the global discussion of the overall impact or emissions impact from goods movement. But I would like to say that we definitely love to be part of and support of moving that the discussion forward, and tracking that. So we certainly see ourselves as a partner in it, really following on the heels of all the community-based tracking that's been done, certainly in West Oakland. And if there's a model that can be expanded, I'm sure that's been a discussion too, on top of drones, right? But we'd like to be part of that discussion. I certainly want to be able to be part of that discussion. It's a much more, and the way I see it is really a global discussion on this. And the reason being is it's more than just, as always, you'll hear the port and me say, it's more than just the trucks that are moving the steel containers up and down the goods movement corridor. And being able to identify other relative and key agency partners to the discussion would be wonderful as well. And there's so much required now. It's interesting, the times are catching up with the way funding is being dispersed with the environmental justice requirements. And now the federal government is being more prescriptive and what that is and how that is distributed. And so there is a stake for government agencies that receive federal funding to participate. So there is now more incentive to get involved.
Great. Any other? David, I see you have a comment in the chat. Do you want to share it?
And I have my hand up.
Oh, sorry. I did not see
Go,
that.
David.
Well, I just wanted to point out that the board has announced it's planning a revision of its emissions inventory, which it does, I think, every 2 years or something like that. And so in the past, UC Berkeley and BACMed have suggested changes in the way in which that inventory is done. So before it gets too deep into the work, I think it would be useful to have a meeting talk about that inventory, because we think from when you look at the emissions impact from the port, it's important to look not just at the emissions which occur within the boundaries of the port, but from the trucking perspective, the emissions that occur in the region. And that's a number that we just don't have in the inventory. And that's just one example. But anyway, that's my recommendation, is that we could get to some meeting of the minds on that next inventory. That might be useful for the city, is what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Miss Margaret.
I would just like to add, Laura, thank you for all that sentiment conversation, and want to partner with the community to find this data that's connected to the general plan. But above your pay grade, we have heard no fence line air monitoring. And there's been a lot of pushback from those above your pay grade telling us directly that they do not want to have real-time air monitoring based on the general plan or any other plans, to have the information of the cumulative impacts of the Port of Oakland coming across the other side of into the community of West Oakland. I don't know if you have that information, but we have that information.
Yeah, no, I'm well aware of that. And I say what I say with the fact that a lot of the federal funding under the Inflation Reduction Act is not requiring and showing and demonstrating how clean air, localized clean air action plans are coordinating with this request for funding. And while there are examples on the ground with the port partnering on the what is it, the greening initiative up along frontage, or Prescott greening initiative, that would be an example of a more creative partnership with that has funding involved, stepping into these new funding pots that the port will be requesting, I do see that there is an area for the port to partner along these lines. So with that, I would actually welcome a conversation for us to follow up with, where we can start discussing some of these. As you know, the U.S. EPA is now engaging input on how best to involve environmental justice, or how to integrate environmental justice in the funding for port infrastructure development. And I don't see environmental justice communities on these sessions. Is something else I see going on. So maybe we could bring in an environmental protection agency partner so that we can invite our folks like WOCAP and CBE who are leading the AB 617 efforts. Again, this is where the funding and its criteria is being developed. And more we're seeing that the federal funding sources want to see how these projects and these requests are coordinating with local clean air action plans.
I appreciate you saying that. I really appreciate you saying that. But it has been a long time coming to get past the emissions inventory process, doing modeling as a way to show that the Port of Oakland has done reduction planning. We have to uplift another methodology based in real time and using some best practices for that real-time data for this general plan. And overall, for the overall, at the end of the day, for AB 617.
Right. Yeah, but Beth, you have a few more slides before we get to the
Yes, I do. Let me get to them.
breakouts.
Yes. Hold on.
And in the meantime, if anybody has not signed in, could you please do me a favor and sign in? I will put the sign-in sheet in the chat one more time. Thank you kindly.
Sorry, I am having trouble getting this to stay in slideshow mode. There we go. So just as a reminder, and I think I want to get us into breakout groups, so I'm going to put this here as a reminder that when the city first came to present to us in May, they shared these kind of emission reduction targets that we have in the WOCAP. And, you know, I think while you're giving feedback on the plan, like, do we want to have the general plan state some sort of emission reduction targets and ideas for how that can happen? So I think that's something we can discuss in small groups. And then the city put out a fact sheet, which I'll put the link in the chat. But the fact sheet highlights a lot of the various disparities related to air quality and air pollution in Oakland and West Oakland specifically. So we all are very familiar with along the 980 and 880, the kind of higher concentrations of air pollution. And then in the breakouts, we're going to go through some of these example policy ideas that the city has come up with. They share in there the different source of those ideas. So you'll see listed in the columns, a number of them come from the WOCAP. And then in your group, you can say, write yes or no, whether you believe that item captures or addresses the issue that we want to make sure is addressed, and then kind of add in more detail. These are still pretty vague policy concepts. And so I think this is a good opportunity to add in more specifics that we want to see in there. So this is the sources below that you'll see. So all the acronyms that you may or may not, care about, but, WOCAP and WOAP are obviously the two that we care about, but they've also pulled a lot from the Oakland's Equitable Climate Action Plan, the East Oakland Neighborhoods Initiative Community Plan, and the Oakland Healthy Development Guidelines, which we've discussed in our group as well. And in the breakout room activity, I have a little slide deck that you all can reference these things in. We've put in the strategies that previous WOCAP meetings had suggested would be a good general plan, good to include in the general plan. So there's 2 slides of those. You don't need, they're just there for your reference. If you just want to focus on the simple sheets from the city, that's fine. So we're actually not going to have 3 groups. So Anna's not a facilitator, but you all will be split up between myself, Alicia, and Joshua. This is the, let me get the link to put this in the chat. And here is the, so your facilitators and anyone in the group should be able to take notes in this. And so here, I'll open it up in here. So this is going to be, let me make sure everyone has, anyone with the link can edit. Yes. Okay. So same instructions. The reference doc is there if you want it. And then you'll just write your topics in here for every group. So every group has the same things. Focus on these 2, which are the air quality ones. And then if there's additional ideas you want to share, put them in here. If your group is really curious or really interested in seeing what the other initial draft policy ideas that the city had in here, there's a couple on water quality and a couple on hazardous materials.
So
Yes,
just to let you know that we're still seeing the main slide deck, not so I don't know if you're sharing the instruction deck, but I just
that is so weird. Okay.
Zoom is finicky with this screen choice.
That is,
You may
thank
have
you
to
for
start a
letting
new
me
share.
know. No, here we go.
I got
You
it.
all have the link so you can look at it. Can you see it now? It's an orange sheet or yellow now.
No, it looks like you may need to stop sharing
Okay.
and start sharing the other one.
I'm sorry.
Although Randolph has included the link in the chat so folks can follow along.
Okay, share.
And
Oops,
each
and I
of
saw-
the,
There we go.
you and the other 2 co-facilitators also have the link directly.
Everyone in the chat. So, but anyway, you will see the air quality. So if your group does nothing else, just hang out on these 2 slides, the green and yellow slides, because these are the air quality draft policy ideas that we want to make sure we're giving input on. So I don't want to take up any more time. Let's stay in the groups until 7:45. So for 20 minutes, and then we can come back and share some highlights. Does that sound good?
All right. So we'll be going into our breakout rooms. See ya on the other side.
Thank you.
Hey, Mia.
Hey Randall, are we in a breakout room or do I need to go somewhere?
I think, do you see, did you get something that popped up?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, actually nothing. I'm joining from my my phone, which is a really weird experience. So
Okay,
I'm
you're
like,
unassigned. Let's put you in, pick a number, 1 to 4.
4.
There you
Or
go. Sir. Sir.
Yo,
All right.
yes, sir.
I'm gonna take a bit of a break here. How you doing?
Right now, she said we don't reconvene.
We will at 45.
Like after this, people just go about their okay.
Yeah, we'll be back at 45, and then they're gonna do the debrief on the breakouts, and then we're gonna wrap it right at 8.
Sounds like a plan.
How's baby girl doing?
Thank you very much for being part of this experience. Baby girl's doing fine. She right now call herself helping her mom decorate the tree, but you know she's not helping.
Classic.
Come here. Come here. Come be nosy. Come here.
Keep you around. But you know, at the same time, I understand that they chose who they chose. Even though I'm a little
Hey,
discouraged, I'm not
what's up? How
Hi.
you doing?
Say hi. Look, he's waving at you. Say hi.
I know I have that effect on women. Uh-oh. Let me see here. I've gotta. Let me see here. Breakouts. All right. Folks asking to get out of rooms. Okay. I'm gonna take a break and then I will be back.
Okay, so I'm just gonna stay here. Yeah.
Unless you want, do you want to join one of the rooms?
I'm fine here. If you need me to, I can go to a room, but I'm fine here.
No, yeah. Why you think I ain't in a room? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
so I'll be back.
All right. I'm here.
All right. Hey, Sir. Sir David. I haven't seen you in a month of Sundays, bro.
How you doing, Randolph?
Yeah. Older I get, I'll be coming with those old man sayings.
Doc, you're always welcome, Doc. Anytime. Dr. David Rossman, to be clear. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It always warms my heart to see you guys working together like this. I miss Jay on it too, though.
For sure.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, so my group was really dove deep into a couple, but we didn't get through all of them. So I think we have about 10 minutes. We have 3 groups. So if each group wants to share maybe 1 or 2 exciting ideas that popped up in their group. Albertia, do you want to share some of the cool things you were suggesting in our group? Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay. It's pretty fresh in my mind. We talked about the commercial buildings and facilities that receive that's going to have a lot of traffic coming in and out, truck traffic and things, and have them install monitors at the entrances and exits that can collect the data and have those companies or owners of those buildings generate a report to the city according to the guidelines that are in place already. And I guess the dates of receiving that information can be determined as quarterly or monthly or whatever. But one of the crucial things is to make sure that there is some monitoring and to do it at entrance and exits. And that'll give us an idea of what is coming in and then when they're leaving. And secondly, there was a much discussion about the weight of the vehicles, and once electrification is implemented, it was an issue about whether there would be allowed to carry a heavier load or not, and the impact that it would have on our roadways within the city. Because we're not really designed to carry those heavy weights all the time. So getting those vehicles weighed is a major factor. Does that kind of sum it up?
And also that based on where the trucks are being parked, that's where the EV chargers should be, and also where they fuel up or where they go to eat. That the EV chargers should be available to the truck drivers.
Yes. And our group talked about a lot of other great things, but I want to make sure we get to everyone. So I hear group 3 had a request in to go next, so I'll hand it off to group 3. And I'll go down to your slides. Do you want me to share your slides, or you'll just share some ideas you came up with or some things you discussed?
I didn't know we had a number assignment, but let me ask, was I group 3?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Actually, you were
4.
group 4. Okay,
Okay.
you were group 4. You're muted. Who wants to
Yeah,
represent
like
Joshua's
both.
group?
So it is my group.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Brian.
I can help you, Ryan. I can get it started. Well, in our group, we had a lot of discussion around kind of questions, kind of some clarifying questions around language, which are left in the document. One idea that was proposed by Laura from the Port of Oakland was specifically in the second strategy around that had like 4. There was one around studying the flow of congestion, and there was a really great comment from her around the need to utilize that data to make better truck management plans. So that was one idea that was kind of a nice counterbalance to a lot of discussion around clarification and feedback around language. And then secondly, I guess the other thing too is under that second, in that similar box around the flow of congestion and local ordinances, et cetera, and like zero emission trucks, there was, I think from Brian and others, a comment of many of these ideas are great, but need to see a little bit more detail around them. And also like, yes, but there are some caveats. So I know that's kind of a general statement, but like there was just a lot of discussion around feedback.
Great. And then
Thank you, Mia.
let's see, and then we'll go to group 2, which was Alicia's group.
Okay, group 2, does anybody want to take it, or you want me to? Okay, so we had the benefit of I'm forgetting the company, but someone who is working in the electric vehicle charging kind of sphere. So we did take a little bit of time talking about the electric vehicle charging and that there, that it is a kind of a land intense use. And so really wanting to be clear about where that should be and how much is needed in Oakland versus elsewhere along freight corridors. We talked about in terms of the transportation network and thinking about the future transportation network, really wanting to connect any improvements to some of the kind of freeway studies that are taking place or that will be taking place. So the I-580 truck ban study, the 980 replacement, and then also talked about, the strategies around buffering and being really intentional about specifying schools, specifying neighborhood senior centers, and And just so that we're really connecting these strategies to the, to the most vulnerable, and being specific in the general plan about, about that. That's it.
That's great. Anything else people would want to add? We have 5 minutes left before we need to go. This is really.
Bro, you're tripping. Yell at me.
Any other thoughts? All right, you want to wrap? Oh, okay, great. Thanks all. Thanks for the spirited discussions. This is always great. So we are just about on time. Do we have any announcements? And again, we like to have a little time for announcements that are specific to AB 617 and the strategies. And I do, Miss Margaret.
I do have an update. It's not necessary. We did a toxic tour today with the
Great.
West Coast Collaborative
Mm-hmm.
that looks at ports and goods movement action plans.
How'd that go?
It went very well. We did our traditional tour of West Oakland, and also this one time through innovation of West Oakland, we also was able to get people off the vehicles and also walk in groups to see the actual activities that has been a burden or impact to West Oakland.
Great. And I see Jimmy and Wanda on, so we're gonna have to get the band back together and work on our institutionalizing the toxic tour, Miss Margaret. So we'll be in touch on that soon.
No problem.
Other announcements, AB 617 related announcements. Julia.
Hi, everyone. Just real quick, I wanted to let you know that CARB just released another round of community air grants, the request for applications. So this is a grant program that funds community-based organizations and tribes doing any AB 617 related work. So it can be community air monitoring, it can be capacity building, education. There's a lot of different eligible project types. And the deadline for submitting applications is March 3rd, I believe. And I'll put a link in the chat, but just wanted to let you all know about that grant program.
Great. Thank you. And they can reach out to you for more information?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. Great. Look at that. We got a whole 2 minutes. I could either give you this 2 minutes back or, there we go. Thank you. Ms. Wanda?
Yes, Common Vision has been asked to host a press conference celebrating Arbor Day with the ceremonial tree planting. And we're hoping to be able to do that at the Sound Walk in partnership with Hyphy Labs and that green barrier planting. All of the dignitaries are invited to come, including the commandant of CAL FIRE, California Relief, and it's an opportunity for us to showcase what West Oakland is doing in regards to trees. So I just wanted to give you an early announcement on that. I'll save the date. We might be asking some of you to speak and represent this org. So that'll be on Tuesday, March the 7th, in recognition of Arbor Day. And I believe the time is 10 a.m.
And I'd like to add something. Wanda's
Yes,
birthday is December the 24th, and mine is December 31st. We are
And
both
we're having
Eve
champagne
babies.
in the middle.
Yeah, we are both Eve babies. Hers was
Happy
Eve after New Year's
birthday.
Eve.
Happy birthday. One thing I don't know if we might want to let folks know, well, they may already know that we don't have another official meeting till February. We will probably be reaching out in January with some surveys and information gathering. So they should stay mindful of emails coming from the team over here.
Thank you for that heads up, Brian.
Awesome. Well, again, just one last temporary farewell to Henry. Happy holidays. Have a safe, healthy, and happy holiday season. And we will see you officially in February. All right. And with that, we
Thank
part you
you.
adieu.
God
All
bless.
right.
Everyone.
Thank you,
Take
everyone.
care.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Merry
Happy
Holidays.
Yeah,
Thanks all.
everybody.
Hope to see everybody in 2023. God bless.
Yes. God bless.
God willing, and the creek don't rise.
There you go.
Are you corny?
Martin and I gonna be drinking champagne.
Drinking, that's right.
We'll be
All
drinking
I'll
right.
call you, Miss
champagne.
Margaret.
All right.